Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Panel of Amateurs. Today on the show, we're going to discuss Luke Cage episodes 7 through 13, our experience at the gaming expo. We're also going to go over news and our favorite video games this week. I'm Terry.
And I'm Peter.
Welcome to episode 3 of Panel of Amateurs.
Theme song goes here. Don't forget to put the theme song in. All right, welcome to the show, and we're going to start out with some news today. Terry, did you watch the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? No, that's not what it's called. The Justice League new trailer.
I did see. It was kind of a behind-the-scenes featurette that Zack Snyder released this week. I really feel like DC is kind of desperate in their marketing. They've had a few turds that they've released, and I feel like that they're doing things to say, here, our movies are cool. I see that our actors are having fun behind the scenes. And that's what it was, because it wasn't really any new footage.
There was no new footage
at all. It was just the footage they've already shown with some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that's going on.
A lot of green screens everywhere, people dropping their weapons. Like, oh, hey, it's fun and campy behind the scenes, but don't worry, it's going to be awesome. Don't worry.
And I think that's, they've gotten in a lot of trouble recently about their movies being darker than, say, your Marvel movies. And this was to show you how much fun we're having behind the scenes, and we're goofing off, and we are having fun here. And it's not about Batman being a serial murderer as well as Superman. So I think that is what they were really, that's why they're doing these things, is to show how lighthearted, that their movies are becoming more lighthearted.
Yeah, but as much fun as they're having behind the scenes, it's still going to be pretty dark if you watch the regular trailer. It's still got that dark overtone with the coloring that they're using, and they made Aquaman a drunk, so it can't be. How fun can it be?
I think it's one of those things where they still don't really get it. We don't care if the movie is dark. Just make a good movie.
Yeah, make a good story.
That's really what we want. Batman and Superman versus Superman can be as dark as you want it to be. The story was just not very good, and that's what was the.
And I've been told if we watch the extended version that BVS is better. When you watch the director's cut, it makes more sense, but I haven't gotten around to it yet, so we'll get there.
I've seen both versions, and it does make more sense, but it also makes the movie over 3 hours long. You've got to make, for those people who aren't going to go out and buy the extended version, you have to make a movie in theaters that is understandable. You're not always going to get that second chance on Blu-ray or DVD.
Right.
So you have to make a movie that people get when they're sitting down in the theaters to watch it, and they haven't been able to do that.
And it doesn't have to be spoon-fed to us. It just has to be something that when I walk out of the theater and I think about it, even half hour later, I can say, oh, now I got it. But it's been a couple months and I still don't get it.
Now, and I won't say that they released this for no reason. One of the we didn't start off with letting people know that there were a few conventions this weekend, namely New York Comic-Con. So they were releasing some footage or releasing some things for Comic-Con, and that's where most of the news is from this week. So they had reason to do it. I just don't think it added anything to the excitement about the movie.
Well, another thing that was released at the New York Comic-Con was the Power Rangers trailer. Terry, I don't know what to say about this trailer, man. It was I don't know. Okay. First we have Discount Jared Leto as the lead character.
Jason the Red Ranger.
I know his character name, but the actor I don't know.
I don't know any of the actors.
I don't know.
In the movie.
And I think that's they're trying to do the Star Wars thing, like get actors nobody knows, and people will love them more because they don't have a set role. They're not being typecasted. But after watching this trailer, it seems like when I watched Power Rangers as a kid, they were just good at fighting. I don't remember them having super abilities like jumping over canyons or being able to swim great depths without any kind of respirator. They were just ninjas. Like it's okay to be ninjas.
Well, and it seems like in this movie, they become ninjas after they get their powers. and I just wonder how that works. Like you touch a rock because that's what they did, and then you become a martial artist. The trailer
It's kind of
wasn't,
Spider-Man-y if you think about it.
and that reminded you a lot of Spider-Man when he became extremely athletic and fit once he gained his powers. I didn't think the trailer was horrible, but I don't think it. I mean, I would say that if I didn't know this was coming out in theaters, I would say that this is the new direction they're going in
The
on
TV show.
the Saturday morning TV show.
Yeah,
So
definitely. It does not make me want to see the film any more than knowing that there's a Power Rangers movie coming out. That's about it.
yeah, it was it was a nice touch at the end where they did the Go Power Rangers theme song, but there was nothing that jumped off the screen to me that would say, "Hey, this is why you really need to jump back into this universe." What did you think about the fact that they're kind of going the Green Lantern route with their suits?
If you think back to the first Power Rangers that was brought over from Japan, that's kind of how they did it. Still, it wasn't as digital and involved as it is in the trailer, but they would say like Triceratops and hold their medallion out, and then their helmet would come up over the top, or like they didn't have suits that they would put on, and then we're ninjas now. It was just T-Rex, Triceratops, pterodactyl,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, bam, we're in our suits. So that's kind of cool that they're kind of paying homage to that. It seems like, at least from the trailer, that's what it looks like.
The other trailer that they released at Comic-Con, and this kind of fits in with what we're going to be talking about later, and this Luke Cage, and he's in this Defenders universe, is Iron Fist. Anything from the Iron Fist trailer that jumped off the screen to you?
The fight scenes look way better than anything in Luke Cage. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on with Luke Cage. But and I get that Iron Fist is a martial arts based character, and so with that he has to have a lot better fight scenes. But I personally don't know a lot about Iron Fist. Again, with the Defenders series, these are lesser known characters that are bringing to the forefront. And so, like I did with Luke Cage, I'm going to probably do some research into Iron Fist and find out a little bit more. But it looks like a good kung fu movie.
I thought that the trailer wasn't overwhelming. It did enough to keep me interested, but there was nothing that really just wowed me about the trailer. I think that, and as someone who's watched all of the Defender season or these TV shows that Netflix has put out in this Marvel universe, I thought that where Daredevil he's a martial artist also, but his fighting style is more of in a cage match, a brawling martial artist, where this is more kind of graceful and crouching tiger, hidden dragon,
Right.
Type of martial arts. Now he didn't do any floating in this trailer, but I did feel like this was more of a graceful style than Daredevil. But I also felt like just the scenes in this trailer, the choreography for the fighting was miles above what we got to see in Luke Cage this season.
Also, I believe from the New York Comic Con, the reveal that Sigourney Weaver is going to be the villain for the Defender series came out. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
They did release that information. I guess it's exciting news.
Yeah.
It's not really something that jumped, like I said, it's not really something that got me jumping around about Sigourney Weaver. They didn't release who she's going to be playing.
Oh, okay.
So I think that is probably why that's kind of muted. We don't know the character that she's bringing to the small screen, but 25 years ago, maybe this would have been just, this is an amazing get, but it's okay news. We'll see what character she plays and what she does with the role.
So I think they're doing the same kind of thing with bringing back that Stranger Things did with bringing Winona Ryder back from kind of obscurity, making her a main character. I think that's what's going to happen with Sigourney Weaver here in the Defender series as well. It's someone that people automatically recognize, and so that name is going to bring in a lot of viewers just because they're going to say, "Oh, well, she's back. What are we doing now? What's new?" So,
Don't get me wrong. Sigourney Weaver is an amazing actress. I just there's no information on what she's going to be doing or where they're going with the role or where she even fits in into the universe. So once more of that information starts to come to the light, I think there'll be more to get excited about. But at this time, it just didn't do much for me.
That's fine. I think that's it for the news this week.
There was nothing that was announced at New York Comic Con that was really just big news. A lot of it had to do, the most exciting news had to do with the Netflix series, but there was no huge trailer announcements as far as like Star Wars Rogue One didn't drop another trailer, Doctor Strange, and I know we're getting closer to those movies, so they've kind of released everything they're gonna release, but there was no announcements for movies next year, none of that type of stuff that you normally get at your San Diego Comic Cons.
Right. And, well, I guess also the Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 1 sneak peek was released this weekend as well. I don't believe that was in conjunction with the Comic-Con. I think it was just AMC's like, hey, don't forget we're coming back in 2 weeks. And that's something we'll talk about next week, actually. We're doing our Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead episode, compare and contrast. But watching the sneak peek this week, Terry, how do you foresee this season going, or at least this first episode?
Well, just from the sneak peek alone, I'm almost certain somebody's going to be down to hand.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that somebody's going to be San's hand for the remainder of the show. Could be
right,
wrong,
because it's not a superhero. He's not going to get his hand back. So,
but I think we're losing a survivor, and we're going to also lose a hand in conjunction with that. So we'll see. I'm excited for it to come back. Like you said, and next week we're going to be talking about Fear the Walking Dead versus The Walking Dead, giving our views on who lost their lives at the hand of Lucille. But I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with the Negan character this season. Yeah. I hope they do more with him than they did with the governor. I felt like they could have done more with the governor, made the governor more sinister. But like I said, we'll save that for a future episode.
All right. Well, on to question of the week. This week, the question that we asked everyone was, what is your favorite video game? But also in the context of, if you could just go and grab a game right now and play it for the next couple hours, what would you play? So there were a lot of responses to this question this week. Normally, we only get a few responses, and that's cool. Thank you guys for responding. But this week, we had a deluge of responses, you might even say. So let's go ahead and go down the list of the answers. I kind of wanted to go chronologically, but then I had to do more research. So I'm just going to start with the oldest one that I know, and then we'll go through the other answers from the fan.
Was this list as weird as the cartoon list that we did?
No, it's not even close.
So no Pizza Power Cats or anything
Samurai
like
Pizza Cats,
whatever that was.
There is one game that I had no idea what it was, and I used to work at GameStop in high school, and I consider myself a gamer, and I'm pretty familiar with things that are coming out and things that have been created in my lifetime. But somehow I missed this game. We'll just start there. This is a game called Dragon's Dogma. I did not know anything about it, so I looked up a video on YouTube to kind of see what it was about. It looks like a third-person Elder Scrolls game, like Dark Souls-ish, and they were throwing people off cliffs. I don't know. It looks interesting.
Seems like it could be fun.
Yeah. It looks like an open world game that you can do things in. I don't know.
So sort of like a medieval Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah, you could say that.
Gotcha.
Probably more fantasy based. I think there were goblins in there. Some pretty large creature enemies, but again, it's a game I still have no idea what's going on.
How old was the game?
I didn't look into that, but the graphics, they look like
modern era.
Yeah,
okay.
Like 2014-ish.
Okay.
Just a couple years ago.
Never heard of it, but sounds okay.
Also on the list was Pong, because, that's a classic. Got two rectangles in a square.
If you could pick up any game right now, you'd pick up Pong. Hey, I'd watch paint dry, but yeah, what's fun to you is what's fun to you.
Now, my question on that is, if you're picking it by yourself, does Pong have a versus computer version? Because I only know of like a 2-player game. I don't know if there's a verse AI type of setting or not.
I don't know. If you're out there and you know the answer to that, please put down in the comments whether Pong is a 2-player, has a 1-player version of the game. I'm not sure. I probably played Pong once or twice in my lifetime.
I think I've only played it as a loading screen for Dynasty Warriors. So,
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? The Super Mario Brother games. We had 3 different responses on that. One was just Super Mario Brothers. Next was Super Mario Brothers 3, which is probably my favorite Super Mario Brother game out of the first and second generation console Mario games. But then Super Mario World with the tag I Miss Yoshi. For that listener who misses Yoshi, there's always emulators, or you can go to your local game/comic book store, and I'm sure they have consoles there. And Super Mario World for $35. That's what the average cost is for Super Mario World now. It's ridiculous.
Now, I did like the Mario games growing up. I'll probably say, just for nostalgia purposes, my favorite was the original on the NES, that version. I can always remember everyone sitting around the TV taking turns. Once you gather so many lives, and then you die, somebody else takes over, see if they can get through that part you missed, or you do one board, they do one board, and you get the levels that I hated the most were the Ice Kingdoms, if that's what they're called. But I can always remember, because you'd run, you'd jump across something, and then you'd slide off. And I don't know if my fingers just weren't functioning enough at the time that I couldn't stop myself or slow myself down, but I'd just slide right off. So I avoided the ice worlds like the plague every time I play. And it doesn't matter what version of the game. To this day, if I pick up a Mario Brothers game, I will avoid going to any of the ice worlds if I can manage to work my way around it.
But eventually, you got to collect everything, right? I mean, that's the point of these old games, 100% clearance. So you got to go to the ice world eventually.
No. See, I never care about that. I don't even care about that now. There's all these games where if you do it this way, or if you collect all these, no, I want to beat the game and be done with it. I don't need 100% clearance rate or 100%. I don't need 100 to finish the game 100%. I've never been built like that.
That's fine. That's your choice. The next series of games that was mentioned was Mass Effect series. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I have never played Mass Effect. Sorry.
I've actually never played it either. But if you're extremely disappointed in Peter, you should also comment that down and put that down in the comments that you're mad at him for not.
And tell me why I should play Mass Effect. I'm going to be honest. I think there's a copy in my house. My little brother left, but I haven't had the desire to pick it up. So maybe leave in the comments why I should play Mass Effect, and I'll see. Maybe I'll let you know next week if I picked it up.
Anything else? Anything really interesting that popped up?
Diablo 3 was one that popped up. That's definitely a game that I enjoy. I have some ties to the game, and so not only do I enjoy it for the art and the story and the gameplay, but also because of my ties to that game, which would be familial in nature.
So what's Diablo? What's that series about?
Oh, it's about killing the devil.
The devil.
And on killing all the demons. It's a dungeon crawler. Basically, what you do is you have a class character, and you level up and get items and gain abilities because of leveling up. But you just go into these maps and destroy everything. Just destroy every kind of demon you can think of. If you can think of it, it might possibly be in the game. There's like trees that come to life. There's goat men. There are
the trees and goat men, are they demons also?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're possessed, or they're just evil. It's great. I don't know. It's a classic
evil trees.
Evil trees. They are. And then if you don't know that they're going to be alive, you're just walking, trying to clear the map so you can find all the dungeons, and all of a sudden it's like, and this tree just comes and destroys. It's awesome, man.
It,
Poisonous mosquitoes shooting things at you, and there's like these giant, like gangly, like Crash Bandicoot type looking characters that are in the desert, and they just throw rocks at you, and they jump out and smack you in the face. But it's cool because I play a barbarian, and I can stomp, which gets a stun, and then I can call up a volcano from the ground, and I call it my death vortex. I stomp, and it sucks them all into the same spot. Then I throw up the volcano, and then I do a cleave attack, and it's just. Yeah.
so was there anything less interesting on the list?
I mean, there's Tetris, which is good. It's always a good one. Chrono Trigger, which is a great RPG about time travel and going to a fair at the beginning. That's about as far as I ever get. Is I go to the fair, and then I go out into the world, and I think, I could really use a sandwich right now, and then I never get back to it. There's Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Skyrim. A lot of these are RPG-based games. There's Devil May Cry 4, the special edition, Old School with Duck Hunt, GoldenEye 64, which is the best multiplayer first-person shooter. I think it's better than Halo, but maybe it's the nostalgia.
I'll be honest. I think most first-person shooters are better than Halo. I was never a huge Halo fan growing up. My favorite first-person shooters are some of the Call of Duty games. Not all of them, but some of them. But I just never got the hang of Halo.
Well, and then on the list, our most frequently referenced game was Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, Ocarina of Time, if you've never played it, is a seemingly open world type game. You have a couple different areas that you work in, but they're all connected. There's no like load screens or anything like that going between. And it's puzzle based RPG. So you have things like the Water Temple, which everyone that's ever played it knows is one of the hardest things if you don't know what you're doing. And then it's just the basic story of Link lives in the forest, going and saving the Princess Zelda from in Ocarina of Time. I believe his name is Ganondorf, because in original the NES Zelda, his name is Ganon. He's just kind of the same evil character that goes through. Terry's looking at me like, I can't believe you know so much about these games.
Some of the game, like my list that I put down was, and I put down basically side-scrolling beat 'em up games. Not a whole lot to them. Really kind of idiot-proof. It was just, and when it comes to Zelda, I'm probably more familiar with the Saturday morning cartoon show.
Oh, really?
Not that, like I just really never, that was also a game that I just really never picked up.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have, it was never that exciting to me. I grew up in a household with a bunch of boys that, most of the time we spent time playing your Street Fighter, growing up, playing Street Fighter, Tecmo Bowl, John Madden when those games became popular, NBA Live, NBA 2K. So those are the games that I have the most in-depth knowledge about.
Well, and just real fast, going back to Ocarina of Time, it also has some of the most iconic Zelda music. So when people think of Zelda music, they think of either the main theme from the NES game, or they think of the songs that you play on the Ocarina to have different events happen in the game. I think that's the puzzle gameplay and the music are the two things that keeps Ocarina of Time relevant for people, even if they're playing it now. But my list that I put down, and I know that we asked for, like, what is your favorite video game? Just like one game, but obviously it's kind of hard to pick one. So I picked Donkey Kong Country, either 1 or 2. Music-wise, I'd play 2, but gameplay, let's just go with 2. Donkey Kong Country 2 is really awesome. It's a lot more in depth than the first one. And then I put GoldenEye 64 as well. But then also I put Wave Race 64. It's just a racing game, but it's so much fun because you're on the jet skis, and there's always just like a turn that you can take a little bit sharper to get, to beat your uncle at Wave Race. That's who I played against most of the time.
That was a big arcade game too, wasn't it? You can find a lot. I still make believe they make that
I
in a lot of
think,
arcades.
yeah, I think it's more based off of the GameCube version, though. I don't think it's the 64
Okay.
version of Wave Race. But those are definitely my probably top three if I wanted to pick up something. GoldenEye, Wave Race, or Donkey Kong Country, one or two.
I came up with two that just really take me back to being a kid. Probably not the greatest games in the world, but Bad Dudes. It was a late 80s arcade game from Japan that came over to the US in the mid 90s. It was basically a side-scrolling beat 'em up game, like I said before, except with kind of like Contra, except with ninjas. So the basic plot of the storyline is your two street brawlers, Blade and Striker, who are tasked by the CIA to rescue President Ronnie, who had been kidnapped by ninjas, the Dragon Ninja, to be more specific. So you had things where you had different color ninjas. Some of the ninjas carried weapons, and if you fought them, they would drop those weapons, and you could pick up the nunchucks and everything like that. And the best part about the game is that at the end of each level, once you defeated the Super Ninja, they struck a pose and they yelled out, "I'm bad." And that was the cutscene at the end of every single level. But I just remember, going to play that game in the arcade. I remember when they released it on the Super Nintendo. I don't remember when they released it on the Super Nintendo. I remember playing it on the Nintendo. Yeah, no.
Terry was watching the commercials like, oh, I can't wait for this to come out from the arcades.
Yeah, no. I remember playing it on the Nintendo, the NES. And Alter Beast, it was a Sega Genesis game where basically you were like a Centurion, that you got these orbs and you could turn into a werewolf or a were-dragon or a were-bear or a were-tiger.
Only wear things.
Only wear things. But I just remember that being one of my favorite games growing up. I don't think because you had to collect 3 orbs per level, and you only got to turn into your werebeast at the end of the level to fight the big bad. And I think I pretty much missed out on because when I play a game, I'm kind of the run through the level game. I'm not trying to piece this together. I'm trying to get from point A to point B as fast as I can. And then I'll find out at the end of the level that I missed 90% of the side missions and the extra things you can pick up.
Well, if that's how you play games, you should play The Lion King for Super Nintendo. It's a good one.
I should probably. That's why I'm an old school Mario fan. You just run, you break up bricks, you get to the end of the level, and that's what matters the most. Now, those are my two. If you have any additional games that you want to leave down in the comments, please do so. We'll respond to those comments, let you know our thoughts on whichever games. Let Peter know why he should pick up a game or two, and give him some grief about why he hasn't played certain other games, because apparently he's played all of the weird games that are on this list.
Except Dragon's Dogma. I haven't played that.
Except Dragon's Dogma.
And Mass Effect. And Kingdom Hearts I haven't played. And Jedi Knight or Jedi Academy. Pretty much about a tenth of the list I haven't played. But I just had never heard of Dragon's Dogma. That's all. At least that. So you can give me as much grief as you want in the comments.
All right. Well, we're at the meat of our show. What brought you all here? We're going to tell you our reviews and our thoughts on Luke Cage, episodes 7 through 13. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not going to be as positive as
last week's episode. Yeah, after, for me personally, just as an overview before we get into it, I feel like after episode 6, there was a shift, and that shift was in the wrong direction, and it became a different show at that point.
By the way, before we get started, something that we've kind of dropped the ball in the last couple of weeks, spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what happened in those last couple episodes, you should probably skip to a different part of the show. But from here on out, be careful for spoilers. I felt like the second half of the season lacked direction after episode 7.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Episode 7 was the best episode of the second half of the season. And I think basically because that felt like it could have been the season finale.
It did, yeah. Well, for me, Episodes 1 through 6, I watched straight. Like I binged it, and not because I needed to, but because I felt like I wanted to know what happened next. So I started them on Friday when they came out, and I finished it up on Saturday morning, just kind of getting that together. But then episodes 7 through 13, it took me this whole last week to watch them because, like you said, they lost direction. There's not anything that made me say, "Oh, I really want to see the next episode to see what happens next." I felt like I was just kind of gonna be able to guess what was going to be the end of the series or for the season.
I felt like they built up all this tension with Cottonmouth and Luke, but they didn't give our hero the chance to resolve it. Like that triumph was taken away from him,
Yeah,
and not allowing our hero to have made the mistake of not doing everything he could to make sure that Cottonmouth went away for good. Cottonmouth gets out of jail, and Luke doesn't get that. Like the last confrontation between Luke and Cottonmouth was basically Cottonmouth pulling one over on Luke by letting him know that he knew his past and that he was going to use that against him in order to have him work for him. And Luke never got the chance to. Now, Luke decided that he was going to continue his mission, but he never got the chance to throw that back in Cottonmouth's face to basically get that victory over Cottonmouth. And I felt like they lost something there.
yeah, and then another thing about the second half of the season is Diamondback. He's the character that we thought. In the first half, he's a ghost. We don't know.
And
who
I
this
thought
guy
he was
is.
poorly written.
Yeah, and then in the second half, he just wasn't as imposing as they wanted him to be. It just kind of when he was no longer a ghost, he was no longer a mystery. It was just like, oh, this is the guy, and this is all he can do. Okay.
Yeah, the second half of the season with Diamondback felt like a completely different show.
Right. Definitely.
Than with the first half of the season with Cottonmouth. Cottonmouth was a character you both loved and hated, but you could see the intimidation there. You could
Right.
see,
And you could see his motivations too. That was another thing about Diamondback.
yeah, and you could also see where with their flashbacks, and that's another thing that they lost. The flashbacks with Ma Mabel and Cottonmouth and Mariah were so much better and more interesting than the Diamondback, Luke Cage flashbacks to their childhood.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to see more of that backstory for Cottonmouth and Mariah, their upbringing. I wanted to see more of that. And once they killed off Cottonmouth, they didn't go back to that ever again.
Yeah, they really should have extended the Cottonmouth storyline through the 13th episode and made this season about fighting off Cottonmouth and Mariah, and made next season about Diamondback. Because I feel like when Diamondback comes in, episode 7, we get that backstory of Uncle Pete and his relationship with Mariah and Cottonmouth's having to take him out due to Mama Maple's request, and that's his first kill. All that happens. It's like a one flashback, and you get so much story from that. And then, like you said, with Diamondback and or Willis Stryker and Luke, or I guess Carl Lucas at that point, with their backstory, it's a different okay. So the Cottonmouth Mariah backstory feeds into why they're doing the things they're doing now, but the Willis Stryker and Carl Lucas backstory, they were best friends, it seems, in the backstory, but now Stryker's making them enemies. Luke isn't even really trying to be an enemy with them.
You could see in the flashback with Mom Mabel where she was steering Cottonmouth in one direction,
Right,
and steering Mariah in another. So you could see where there was that, why they ended up in the positions that they ended up being in. But the flashbacks with Luke Cage and Diamondback never show any conflict between the two of them to show you why there's this amazing amount of hatred for Diamondback towards Luke. He talks about it a little bit, but he never gives a real reason why he would hate Luke so much, besides the fact that his father, or their father, who Luke even says himself, didn't like him either.
Right.
Why not go after the father as opposed to going after Luke, who through most of your formidable years, you all are friends. You're the quarterback on the team. He's a running back. You guys are buddies. You're his boxing coach. Show me a flashback that leads to the conflict between the two of you, and then I can understand that. And they never got there.
So that's probably the biggest complaint that we both have about the second season, is that the conflict doesn't feel real. It just feels forced. It feels like the writers are forcing us to dislike Willis Stryker because he's attacking Luke Cage, and that's it. It becomes almost like the Sandman in Spider-Man. That character...
Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3, right. When, they don't have any kind of real conflict. It's just that he's a bad guy and he's a hero, and Spider-Man's a hero, and now they're going to fight. Whereas, like, against the Green Goblin, there's actual issue because, he's Spider-Man's friend's dad. So there's the conflict is not strong enough in the second half of the season to carry that many episodes.
No, 6 episodes or 7 episodes was that they dropped the ball with killing Cottonmouth as fast as they did. Like you said, I'm a huge believer in that they should have drawn that out more, flushed that story out more. I think the Cottonmouth character in the first 6 episodes was one of the better characters in the show. I'll also be honest with you. I feel like that Luke Cage, the supporting characters in the show were better. Their stories were better than Luke Cage. Even finding out that his wife had been that she basically married him as a science experiment to keep tabs on him. I never really got the emotion of finding out that, like, that should have torn your world. If you go back to the Jessica Jones series, you were ready to murder people who you thought were involved in her death. And to find out that everything that she'd ever told you was basically a lie, and there's really you get no huge emotion from it. It lost me in the second season. They really lost me.
And another thing about the second half of the season, which could be a plus for some people, is that it really becomes more of a cop show. We follow Misty through her issues with the psych evaluator and trying to get a story out of her, but then she goes and starts investigating on her own. And so it becomes like this renegade cop story where we're going to follow Misty and she's going to find the truth. But to find the truth, she has to bend some rules. And that's just kind of a trope that it goes flat pretty quick.
A lot of the second half of the season that's just the word for it. It was flat. And I know a lot of people are going to go, well, does that mean you guys don't like it? It's not that I wouldn't recommend the show. I would say that be prepared that the first 6-7 episodes are great. It is after that where they turn directions in the season that just falls flat. I don't think the last 6 episodes work as well as the first 7. If they had ended the show after the 7th episode, I would have been okay with it. I would have...
Right. It would have been a nice cliffhanger.
It would have been a nice cliffhanger. But the continuing on with the Diamondback storyline, I never bought into it. Were there any other characters? Were there any surprises for you from the first 6 or 7 episodes to the last 6?
Surprises.
Anything that you didn't expect, that you didn't see coming? Anything like that?
I think the episode where Diamondback has the hostages in Harlem's Paradise was a little bit of a surprise because they start making him weak at that point because he doesn't have a plan. They made Shades a little bit stronger, actually, to me, in that time, because he comes in and says something to the effect of, what's your plan? You don't have a plan. And then Stryker gives him a plan, and he says, that's not a good plan.
That was the other thing for me. Willis Stryker, Diamondback, had, obviously they said they painted this picture that he had meticulously set up this crime syndicate behind the scenes with meticulous planning to stay in the shadows, and then all of a sudden he just, as he says, starts to freestyle. Well, why? That's not what's worked for you before.
Right. Why not stick with your bread and butter, you know? He comes out and starts showing himself, but then he also says, "No, they can't see me. You know, they can't know who I am." But he's shown himself to so many people at this point. Everyone knows who he is. That's probably one of the things that makes it seem flat to us is his story has changed within the story. He just changed who he is.
He had a complete shift in the way he did things, and it didn't match up with the story. Now, you said Shades, and we talked about Shades last week. I don't feel like Shades got any better. I feel like he got more
stronger.
screen time. I don't feel like he became... his character maybe became stronger. I don't think it was a stronger performance. I think that it was still as kind of awkward and weird as it was before. I wouldn't say Theo Rossi. I just never got an understanding for what he was trying to do with the character. I thought he got more screen time, more lines, but I don't think that made I don't think his character got any better. But you do?
I think that he became, the more screen time gave him more of a reason to be there. But when he started to manipulate Mariah a little bit more and try to start his own, it seemed like he's starting his own syndicate at that point. I became more interested to see what he was doing. Before, I didn't care what he was doing. He's just this like shady guy that comes in and, oh, this is what Diamondback wants. But now he's going against Diamondback, and I thought that was kind of an interesting arc for him, going against the guy that he's supposed to be following.
I felt like the writers were trying to force him. They were continuing to try and force him on us. The first 6 episodes, they didn't know what to do with him. So the last 6 or 7, they were like, "Here, put this on the table. Take it. This is what you get." I'm still not. I'm not a big fan of the Shades character. I just didn't fit for me.
Yeah. Well, another thing that feels really forced in the last half of the season is the fight scenes. I mean, we know that Luke Cage has he has superhuman strength and he has his bulletproof body, but a lot of it was like, there's one where he flicks a guy on the top of the head and the guy passes out, and it's like, this is not. And that's what I'm looking forward to Iron Fist for, is the choreography for the fight scenes is not very strong in this show.
And I get that the fighting in this is completely different than Daredevil or Iron Fist, and that they're martial artists. But I will say something closer to someone just being a brawler is going back to the Jessica Jones series. And if you look at the fight scenes in that compared to the hand-to-hand fights in that compared to what we saw in Luke Cage, I felt like the choreography was off. I even feel like the writing for Luke as a character were better in the episodes that he showed up in Jessica Jones than they were in the Luke Cage series itself. I felt like he was written better. Maybe the writers understood him more in that show than they did as much in this one. But for the fighting itself, I felt like there's a scene where Jessica Jones is fighting a cop who's basically hyped up on super soldier serum in her apartment. That scene in itself was miles better than the season ending fight scene between Luke and Diamondback. I felt like the choreography was better. It worked better. That suit that Diamondback was in was completely atrocious. When he stepped in the door in that thing, I don't know how it would have been better if they would have just made Luke laugh at him to start off with, and then we would have all just realized that they see it as a joke too. But that suit was atrocious. The last punch that Luke threw, that it doesn't even seem, if you look at the if you watch it, it doesn't even seem like he hit him. That's how far off the choreography was, the fight scene choreography was. And I thought it was handled a lot better in the other series that they've already done.
Yeah, that final fight, it reminded me of The Simpsons when Homer was a boxer, and he just stands there and takes it till they get tired, and then he pushes them over. That's how it is in The Simpsons when Homer's a boxer. Like, they find out that he has a giant space in his head that's just filled with water, and then so he can take all the punches that he wants, and he doesn't get hurt. So I feel like that's what happened with Luke Cage, and they even reference that with his little backstory flashback when he's training to be a boxer, like take the hits and make the other guy tired. And so that's what he does. He just sits there and gets pummeled by Diamondback until he gets tired, essentially, and then he punches him a couple times and it's over. So it felt very Homer Simpson to me.
So basically, Diamondback had this suit that was powered by Hammer Tech, is what he kept calling it. And if you remember Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2, he was the rival who invented the mech suits that Whiplash eventually ended up using. Spoilers for Iron Man 2 if you haven't seen that film. But it basically was a cotton jumpsuit that could absorb the punches that Luke would throw, and he had on the gloves.
Right, as long as it was powered up.
Yeah, as long as it was powered up. I just felt like that was really, really bad. It was almost like, hey, we're at the end of the season. What do you want to do? How do you want to end this? Yeah, you want to put him in a mechanic suit and say it's a superpowered mechanic suit? Let's do that. And then we'll have him beat up Luke for a while and get tired, and Luke will basically push him over. Because that was an air punch. The punch never actually even hit. I just, at the end of the day, again, I would still recommend it if you want to stay connected in this Defenders Marvel universe that they have on Netflix. But I'm also going to say that they have a lot of work to do going into season 2. They've got to clean up some relationships. I felt like Claire and Luke, their friendship was good, but they had no chemistry on the.
It's so forced.
It was a forced romance. They wanted us to see this budding relationship, and it just never really. Never really worked.
It went very Princess Bride, because in the Princess Bride, the main character, when he tells Buttercup that he loves her, he doesn't say I love you. He says as you wish. Mm-hmm. And so in Luke Cage, they just say always. Be careful. Always. You're so corny. You're so corny, and always. That's there as you wish. And it's just forced. It does not feel like they even like each other in a romantic way. It just feels like a friendship or a relationship of convenience. That's what I would call it.
So would you, to the listeners out there, would you tell them to spend the money on Netflix? If this was the only show on Netflix for $6.99 a month, would you tell them to go out and spend it on this show?
I don't think so, man. I don't think I would recommend, if this was the only show for $7 a month. After watching the entire series, I wouldn't, no.
And I think, and that just came to me. I think that's the way you have to look at Netflix, because you're not going to like every show on Netflix. You're not going to watch every movie on Netflix. If you're watching a specific show on that channel, and let's just say with the 13 episodes, you got 1 a month and 2 in the last month, would you be willing to spend the $7.99 or whatever it is to watch that one show a month? Now, the first 6 episodes?
Yeah.
First 7 episodes? Maybe.
I would say yes, for sure, because those had the strongest story.
Yeah. But the last 6, no. There's absolutely no way that I would want to spend that money seeing the show, because of how they climbed this hill in the first 6, 7 episodes. And like Dogma, what was that game? Dragon Ball Dogma. Yeah. Dragon Dogma. They went right over the cliff after episode 8, or starting
7.
with episode 8.
Yeah.
They started going downhill.
So overall, if you have some time, watch Luke Cage just so you can stay up to date with what's going on with the Defenders series. But if it happens to be on, then you should watch it.
You know what I'd also say? Maybe you go and watch the last 6 episodes first, and then you go and watch the first 7 and cut it backwards like that. And it might actually be a better story, because those first 7 episodes are miles above the last 6. So kind of watch it in reverse order. It's like that Star Wars effect where they say if you watch the episodes in a certain order, it makes the prequels a little bit better. Maybe Luke Cage works this way too.
So this last weekend here in Springfield, Missouri, we had GameCon. Terry and I were able to attend, and we did some interviews while we were there. So we'll put those up in just a second, but we have a little bit of a review as well of how GameCon went and what we thought of it. Now this is your first con, right?
This was my first expo or con or anything related. So there was a lot of things that I expected, a lot of things that I saw that I did not really expect.
Terry, what are your thoughts on GameCon?
Let's just say that it was not San Diego Comic Con or even this week, New York Comic Con. It kind of was what it was. As the day went on, I felt like the crowds got larger. Obviously, I guess when people were getting off work, they were able to make it by. They had a costume contest, kind of a cosplay contest, and while all the people did great, most of the cosplay costumes seemed like they were picked up at a 2-year-old's garage sale. Leftover costumes from last year, come on in, get them cheap. And that's kind of, if you were expecting the type of effort that people put into San Diego and probably New York, you weren't getting that
Yeah,
here.
it was a little bit lackluster. There was a gentleman who was in full Ghostbuster garb, though. That was pretty impressive. I don't know if you saw him or not, but he had the pack, the gun, everything. I can't even think of what they're called right now. The parts of it.
Proton pack.
The proton pack. Thank you.
The Ghostbuster stuff was actually probably some of the more well put together booths at the Game Expo, and we're saying game, and it wasn't just about game. The expo is actually called Gaming Arts and Media Expo, so there were different things from a lot of different genres or mediums there. You had video games, you had artists, you had we even set in for what did she play? The ukulele?
The ukulele, yeah.
A ukulele set. They had panels where you could go in and listen to experts talk about. One of the ones that Peter and I sat on was
The voice
acting panel. And that was another good one. So they had a lot of different things there that you could sit and do or enjoy.
They had game tournaments as well. They had Street Fighter tournaments, Tekken tournaments, Super Smash Brothers. I believe there was a rock band one as well at one point. But they had it set up so that you could play everything from NES up through PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
No PC, but that's okay. All console games were pretty awesome. Just having that ability to go over to their library that they brought, and you can just pick any game from whenever and throw it into the console and just jump on it.
And I thought that was really cool, is that you could go as an attendee, you could go and check out a game. And you could check out board games also. They had board game tables set up
for sure
for different types of games.
Yeah, they had Paladins.
They even had Cards Against Humanity. It was basically any game that you could think of. They had to where you could check it out, and those are the board games. But even on the video game side, I thought it was cool that you could just go in and check out their library of games, and then check out a game that you wanted to play for a while, and then they would get you to your console. You'd have a certain amount of time depending on how busy they were or the request. I really thought that was cool. One of the interviews that we did was with the guy who was running that booth, and he'll give his name and all that information in the interview. But that was probably one of the better setups to me, is the actual game section where you could go and play some older games, some newly released games.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite parts of the expo this weekend.
But along with going to the con, every con has a goodie grab bag of some kind. This con, they had in the goodie bag, they had some candy, they had some coupons for local stores, for some of the vendors that were at the con, and some entry, like raffle entry stuff. But they also had kind of what to do for the con. They had a list of things. And Terry, do you have that with you today?
I do have the list. I'll go over the list of what they say you needed to do while attending the con. Number 1 on the list: stay hydrated. Drink water and sports drinks are good options. Soda and energy drinks. Pause your game to stretch every 45 minutes. You know, you don't want to get a backache while you're sitting there playing your game, because one of the weirdest things about there are the sheer amount of hours certain individuals spent there. We both showed up early, picked up our press passes, stayed a little while, and then left and came back later on in the night. And there were people that were there the entire day, which probably
like
comes in
over 13 hours.
Over 13 hours of excitement. Two of the last two rules that are probably the best rules are to prevent con crud by washing your hands regularly. So they want to make sure that you're touching controllers that everyone else is touching. Keep those hands clean. But number one rule on the list, and I always say that if someone made a rule for it, it's because people broke that rule over and over and over again till it became a problem, is rule number one at Game Expo is to shower or bath. When you have to tell adults they need to shower or bath, you know that it got really bad at a certain point in time.
Well, and they give you the 3-2-1. Remember the 3-2-1 rule for the con. 3+ hours of sleep, eat 2 nutritious meals, and take 1 shower or bath. That is, like Terry said, if there's a reason that they made this list, because this is the 8th year that Game Con exists, and so they've had 7 previous years where possibly these rules were not followed.
And no one was showering. And let me just paint the picture for you. One of the ways that we described it. Now, we both had fun. We had a great time. One of the ways we described the smell was that it smelled like basement.
Yeah.
In the expo. And when you've got people that have been there for 13 hours, that smell doesn't get any better. Continuing on with the shower and bathing thing, it was not cool in there. There was no air conditioner.
Yeah, the air conditioning was messed up for some reason.
I had on a light jacket, and within probably 15 minutes of being in the room, I had to take my jacket off. Some of these people that were in costumes, and so not all of these some of these were heavier costumes, and that, like, again, they'd been there for 13 plus hours.
Yeah.
Let's just say the dry cleaning bill on that costume is going to be out of this world. But no, I did have a good time. I think it is a budding expo. Everyone that we talked to, and you'll hear it in the interviews, said that this year there are more people than there were last year. So I think that they're continuing to grow. They're continuing to bring in different artists, different guest of honor. Peter Mosen of Ghostbusters fame was one of the guest of honors. He was actually in the first Ghostbusters movie, I believe. He has built and sold a lot of Ghostbusters replica cars,
right.
Is kind of what he's famous for. One of the ones that I was most interested in was Cullen Bunn, who has worked on a lot of Marvel projects, the actual comics, X-Men, Deadpool. He worked on X-Men Civil War 2, which is currently out right now, the Uncanny X-Men, Extraordinary X-Men. So he has a lot of current real comic book credits. I will say the funniest thing that I noticed about Cullen was that I followed him on Twitter through our Panel of Amateurs Twitter page to see that, he was really excited about the con this weekend. He made a lot of Twitter posts about the con. He, posted articles, different things like that. Problem was, it wasn't about Springfield Game Expo. It was about New York City Comic-Con. So I'm going to venture to say he wasn't really that excited about being here. But he brought a lot of his work to show, what he'd done in the past, and a lot of his really big comic book stories that he's been a part of.
So yeah, overall the con was really fun. We enjoyed our time there, and we'll probably go again next year if we can.
Hopefully we'll be back next year. San Diego Comic-Con is open for registration, so we'll be applying for press passes to maybe take that long shot in the dark and see if we can get some San Diego Comic-Con press passes. If you'd like to donate and help us get there, maybe even just sponsor a video. We'd love to go out there and tell you about our experiences out there.
Also, if you're out in the San Diego area, housing will be nice to have if we go there. So we'll be in contact with you for a place to stay.
Leave that down in the comments if you want Peter and I to come, and we'll even do a show
From your house.
Do a few interviews, hang out at the Comic-Con together. If you'd like to sponsor our videos, please contact us through our email address, which is at panelofAmateurs@gmail.com.
But the U and the E are switched.
Because we're amateurs and we misspelled it. You can follow us on Twitter at Panel of Amateurs. You can find us on Facebook at Panel of Amateurs. Basically, if you look up Panel of Amateurs, we should come up.
We'll
Maybe.
be there. We'll be there.
We've done a few Google searches on ourselves, so it should pop right up. But we would like to thank you for listening once again. Like I said, at the end of the show, we're going to post some of those interviews that we did at the G.A.M.E this weekend. We may even put up some pictures on Twitter and Facebook of some of the pictures and the sites that we got to enjoy at G.A.M.E this weekend. Yeah. Thanks again for tuning in. Peter and I are having a great time with this. We hope that we're getting better. Tell your friends about us. We need subscribers.
Yeah, spread it around.
If you've been listening and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Our shows are only getting better. We're only going to be bringing more content to you, more news, more episodes. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can get all the latest news and information from Peter and I.
And getting ready for next week's episode when we're going to be talking about Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead, our question for all of our listeners is, who got Lucille? If you don't know what that means, Negan, the new character, he has a bat named Lucille, and he has taken out one of our probably, maybe lifelong friends, depends on how you look at this story. But who do you think got the bat? Write that answer to your question down in the comments below, or you can do it on our Facebook page when we post the question there.
Also on our Twitter, you can find that. You'll be able to find that question later on in the week. So just let us know who you think got Lucille. If you haven't caught up on The Walking Dead yet, you'll want to do so this week and next. They'll be launching the season here in 2 weeks. So go ahead and get caught up. Let us know who you think won't make it past episode 1 of season 6.
7. Yeah, we're season 7 now.
Episode 1 of season 7. Let us know who you don't think will last through the first episode.
All right. Well, thanks for a good show, Terry. I'll see you next week.
It was an awesome show, Peter. See you next week.
Nope, this is my first year.
Honestly, this is the first year that I don't have to work on any of the days, so I'm super excited that I get to be here for the whole experience.
Coming here for the past 2 years, this is my 3rd year.
One of my friends comes here like every year.
This is my 7th year.
So if you could pick up any video game right now, play it without having to put it down, past or present, what would it be?
Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. I've beaten it 17 times now.
Halo 4.
That would be Homeworld 2.
It'd probably be Kingdom Hearts 2.
I'm going to have to say Ocarina of Time.
Mario Kart in 64. I would be perfectly content to just play Rainbow Road for the rest of my life.
What's the nerdiest thing you know about her?
She has a lot of passion for like art and science fiction and just a lot of the fandoms that we all know and love here at GameCon.
Dodecacon, Rubelcon, VisionCon. I might be biased when I say this one's my favorite one.
Hi, I am Eleanor.
I've seen a couple of cool panels. I went to one today that was super cool on audio engineering.
I'm really excited about having Cullen Bunn. He writes some of my favorite Deadpool comics.
Our Geek Fanthology at www.workingtheoryproductions.com. We're on Stitcher and iTunes and my website. I'm getting more volunteer help this year than I've ever gotten, and it really helps make this area flow better.